Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. I'm going to give y'all a minute to come on in. I got a little trick.
Are you showing that we're live on Facebook?
Well, that's what I'm trying to see. Mm-hmm. I wonder. So I put at followers to see if that would like send a notification to everybody.
Okay. Okay, there it is.
How was your day, LaQuinda?
It was a great day. Not without its challenges, but a good day nonetheless.
Okay.
What about you?
It was a busy day, but it was okay. Are you still able to see me okay?
I can see it.
Okay. I'm gonna try this one more time. I do trust it.
I can
As
see.
you come in, ladies and gentlemen, we want to ask you to please say something so that we know that you're there. So today is a Wellness Wednesday. Some people call it Winning Wednesday. What do you call it? Hump Day. Thankful that we only have 2 more days in the work week.
Okay. Make sure you say hi when you log in or when you join in so that we can see who you are.
So some people have been asking questions about why we go live from the Cromwell Funeral Home Facebook page. It's really because LaQuinda and I are both licensed funeral directors. Um, and we know how important it is to talk to somebody after losing a loved one. And so we just kind of want to bring exposure to that. LaQuinda, do you want to tell them what funeral home?
So I am affiliated with Bethune Funeral Services. Yeah.
So it looks like we have about 4 people, but I'm not seeing any comments. If you
Yeah.
have a telephone number and you are watching and you have commented, please let me know because we can't interact with you if we don't know you're there. I'm not seeing anything.
Sorry, that's me. So I guess we can go ahead and get started with the people that we have. And if you watch the replay, still comment, share, and give us your input.
Yes, please. So tonight we just kind of wanted to talk about healing and resistance. So sometimes you're in a place where you know something is wrong, you know that you need to make some changes, but you're just resistant. And so we want to talk about ways to get over that or work through that. Is there anybody that's on here that's in that place?
While we're waiting for, am I frozen?
No.
Okay. While we're waiting for hopefully someone to comment, one thing that I've learned, that I've noticed, is that one of the primary reasons for resistance to healing or change, I think, is that we get comfortable in chaos. Like, we may not like it, and we may know it's not appropriate, or that there could potentially be something better, but we become so comfortable in the dysfunction, in the chaos, that we are afraid of changing, because the chaos becomes familiar. Like, we may not like it, but we know it.
Right.
And there's a level of comfort in that dysfunction. But if we choose to seek better, then we don't know what that brings with it.
Yes. You're uncomfortable, and sometimes people will say, I'm too old to change.
Right.
You're never too old to make a positive change in your life.
Right.
Surprisingly, I am seeing a increase in seniors coming to therapy. And I'm so excited about it.
Yeah. That's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a great example for elders to set. Like, that's a great legacy to leave. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
if they can do it at an older age, as that example, just imagine how much better their children and grandchildren will be, now that they see that it's okay, and they can start dealing with some of those things that are challenging to them before.
Ooh, breaking some generational curses.
Yes. Breaking some negative cycles, some negative cycles of thought and behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes we just do things because that's what we've seen. Like, I know I'm guilty of it. People ask, why do you do that way? Because that's how my grandma did it. That's how my mom, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it carries over to different parts of our lives. Even our perspective, the way we look at things, we may decide we like something or don't like it, having no real experience of our own, but simply because we heard someone who we love, admire, and respect say that they held that position about that person or that thing.
Mm-hmm. Also, with the way we handle things with our emotions,
Yep.
a lot of times we don't realize that we may be detached because our mother was detached or because our father was detached.
Yep.
And we modeled that.
Yeah. Yep. Or we may be overly dependent because that's what we saw.
Mm-hmm.
We may tolerate things that we should speak up against because that's what we saw.
Yep.
So Yeah, there's a lot. Um, and I think that I know I've had this experience, and I'm sure you have too. When some people come into therapy, um, when it gets to a certain place that they have to begin to take action,
Mm-hmm.
they'll start to pull back, right? Because, like you
Oh,
said earlier, they know that they need to do something different, but
mm-hmm.
they're not willing to,
Yep.
and so they'll make excuses, or like we'll give them uh, a homework assignment to do, and we're 5 sessions after that, and they still haven't even attempted because taking that step, initiating that conversation, um, is feels like too much for them.
Yes. Or just even tracking their mood
Yeah.
day to day. But the benefit of doing that
Hmm.
is so beneficial.
Right. And one thing that I found is when they can force themselves to act or speak up or whatever it is that we challenge them to do,
Mm-hmm.
they usually come back and say, "Oh, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was."
Yep.
That, or they didn't respond as
Yeah.
bad as I thought they would.
Yeah. And some of the responses that I get is, "I'm glad that you pushed me to do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel relieved."
Hmm. Because the story that we tell ourselves about what's going to happen or how people are going to respond is most of the time very untrue.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, my back is hurting. So I have this thing on. Can y'all hear it?
It's okay. I hear a slight hum.
Okay. If it gets disruptive, let me know and I will gladly
No,
turn
no,
it.
no. You're good. Another area of resistance that I've noticed is um, medical interventions, right? So a lot of times people do a lot of work, but there are times where medication could be beneficial to them, but because of the stigma, I think it's because of the stigma, they're resistant to trying that.
Oh yeah.
So I always try to make a correlation between their our physical health and our mental and emotional health.
Yep. I don't know if I shared this during the last time we talked. Y'all know I kept having this issue with my throat. Did I talk about my throat and the stress?
Uh-huh.
So I have already shared that.
Yeah, but share it again.
So I kept having this issue with my throat. Every time I would get stressed out, I would lose my voice. And I went to my PCP and he said, "Okay, we're going to send you to a specialist." Well, when I got to the specialist, they did a scope, of course, and he said, "You have acid reflux." And I just kind of laughed and I was like, "That's impossible." I said, "I had acid reflux when I was pregnant and it doesn't feel the same."
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Well, that's the only correlation between stress and a person losing their throat, losing their voice." And then he drew something. He was like, "Most of the time, it looks like you have two vocal cords." He says, "But yours look like this, so they're doubled." He said, "And that's from the inflammation." I was like, "Wow."
Mm-hmm.
So, oh yeah, because we talked about stress being a silent killer. Stress works on us
Mm-hmm.
in so many ways.
Mm-hmm.
And it is so important that you take care of yourself. And I think a sign that something is going on is kind of when you let yourself go,
Mm-hmm.
or when you're not sleeping, or you're overeating. Ask yourself if you're trying to heal emotionally with the food that you're eating.
because you're trying to fill a void.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I think overthinking, right? When we get to a place where we're constantly overthinking, doubting, trying to creating scenarios in our head, and then working through those all the different possibilities of those scenarios, that adds stress too. So now you have the stress of the actual situation or trauma or experience, and then you have the stress of the scenarios that you created in your head.
Which are all cognitive distortions. So
Right.
those are irrational thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And 9 times out of 10, if you work on restructuring those thoughts, you're going to come up with a more balanced thought. But you wasted so much time going over all these things in your head that we can't predict anyway.
Right.
We have no way of knowing what is going to happen in the future, or what the outcome of any situation can be. Now, we can prepare. We can try to be prepared for it.
Mm-hmm.
But how many times have y'all been in a situation where you plan everything just right and then something goes wrong? But it works out fine anyway.
Yeah. And one thing that I tell my clients is, since we're making things up, let's make something up positive, right? We're creating scenarios. Why not throw in some good things that could happen unexpectedly? Because you don't know. Something could go wrong, but something could turn out more amazing than you thought it would be.
Right.
So, everything does not have to be doom and gloom, woe is me. If you're going to make something up, hey, let's find something good to throw in there. Because it's just as likely to happen as the negative things that you're telling yourself. So,
is there anybody out there that has a question?
I think that while we're waiting, hopefully we'll get some questions. I think that another reason that we can be resistant to healing is because we're afraid of what other people will think. It's hard to be the one that breaks the cycle, right? Because that means you don't always fit in. And so sometimes we're resistant because we feel like we can't carry the weight of being the one that's different.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Miss Pat. Miss Pat said change is good. My granny used to say it's a poor wind that never changed direction. Ain't that true?
Yes, ma'am. Did it say where she coming from?
On my page.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But it's change is inevitable. It's going to happen whether you're an active participant or not. Mm-hmm. And so what we have to empower ourselves to do is be active in making decisions that will empower us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because your life is going to pass by. You get to choose if you're an active participant or if you're just passively getting through each day, taking whatever life gives you.
Right. So we are trying to figure out, we've been doing this about a month, and then the holidays came, and we kind of got off of our normal day. And so we're kind of trying to get back in a good routine. But we want to hear from you. We know that you obviously enjoy it because you get on, you watch, you comment, you share, you like. But we want to hear from you. So we would like for y'all to start giving us some topics that you want to talk about. We did do our giveaways last month. My staff still needs to reach out to Miss Allen to give her gift. But when is December 1st?
Friday.
Yep. I should have known that. Okay, so starting on the 1st, we're gonna do another giveaway. And our staff, all of our staff is gonna be at Resolutions on December the 15th for our open house. So you can come and meet them in person, ask questions, anything. Come and get you some food. We're gonna be giving door prizes away. You don't want to miss it.
Yep.
How was the holidays for everybody?
Ooh, mine was great.
You took a trip.
I did.
Did you come back refreshed?
I did. I really did. I could have used a little more time, of course, but I do feel refreshed. One thing that I'm learning as we talk about, healing and being open to change is that life is for living. I mean, it's always going to be something, there's never going to be a perfect time to do what it is that you want to do. Like, you can always find a reason to postpone seeking joy, but man, it's not even worth it.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I did come back refreshed.
That's good. So share with us like what you can do to stay that way. Because when you get back, life happens. Like I took a trip. Y'all know I went to Vegas for work, and one of my very good friends was like, "You were so relaxed. You had like not a care in the world, and then you're back, and it's chaotic again."
So I think it's important to create balance. That's one of the ways to stay refreshed. You have to accept that you can't do it all, and everything doesn't have to be done at once, right? So you prioritize, do what you can do, be intentional with your time, and understand that you are not the savior of all. Everything does not have to be managed and supervised by you. Be mindful of the, I mention all the time the weight that we carry, right? Be careful about what weight you pick up that's not yours. Because a lot of times we wear ourselves out by taking on tasks for other people, and we see it as us helping them, when a lot of times it's us enabling them to continue to do the least. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so be careful about the things that you obligate yourself to, because sometimes it's just not worth it. It may give you another title, it may give you, another line on your resume, but what does it take from you? Is what it takes take away from you worth what it's giving to you? And a lot of times it's not. We take on roles and tasks because we want to be the nice person, or we know it needs to be done. Okay, but it don't have to be done by me.
Right. And I'm learning to do that. And I did that recently. Like I volunteered for something, and then I quickly thought about it. You are taking things off of your plates. No.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I'm proud of that. Miss Belinda wants to know what time on the 15th.
Oh, I responded. I told her I'm working it out. I said probably from 11 to 2.
Okay. I just saw where you was one. But yeah, so that's how I am learning to stay refreshed. Because honestly, I was feeling it before I left. I'm just determined to hold on to it. Another thing that has been big for me is accepting people for who they show me they are.
Okay.
I for a while was wearing myself out because I was expecting people to be who I knew they could be instead of who they showed me they were. And so I had created this scenario, and then I just kept disappointing myself because I'm like, well, why wouldn't they do that? And they should do this. And I was looking at how I would handle it or how I thought they should handle it. And so we don't realize all the time how mentally draining it is for us to constantly feel disappointment from the people who we are in relationship with, whether it's a marriage, a friendship, a job, whatever it is. Like, that takes a lot out of you when people are constantly disappointing you. But when you look at it, it's not that they said or did anything. It's what the perception of them that you created.
Right.
That's causing the constant disappointment.
And so, at what point do you stop giving second chances? Or at what point do you say, okay, I'm going to give them some grace because maybe they were having a bad day? Does that come into the equation?
Absolutely. So I shared something this morning. I think it said, when people's words and actions don't align, believe what they do, not what they say. Because I don't believe we're not who we say we are. We are what we repeatedly do. And so I can give you chances, but when you tell me, okay, I'm going to do better, that was a mistake, I was having a bad day, but it keeps happening. No, it wasn't a bad day. That's who you are. And so I have to learn, you can tell me these things to string me along. And that ties back into the unrealistic expectations of people that we create because we're believing what they tell us, not what they show us. And so for me, you stop giving chances when you realize that there has been no consistency between what they say and what they do.
Fair enough. Teresa said, I'm going, oh, no, where is it? She said, mine was not as bad as I thought it would be. I've decided to heal, so I pushed through. Teresa, can you tell us a little bit more about the first part of your statement? If she's still there. Oh, that's about the holidays. Yeah.
Miss Teresa, why did you think it would be bad?
Yeah, she had a lot of losses.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons that my family changed our Thanksgiving tradition. Like, we used to have these huge Thanksgiving dinners, like huge, like as far back as I can remember, we would have these huge gatherings. And then when we started to lose family members and they got smaller and smaller, and it had just become more of it was just heavy. There was no real, those of us who still gathered, we still enjoyed each other's company, but it was overshadowed, by the loss. And so for us, we just created a new tradition and it's helped. So what I would encourage people to do is, again, uh, uh, accepting or embracing change, sometimes you have to do something different because the old way holds too much pain. You can still, honor the memory and, cherish the tradition and all of that, but we can't always do things the same way. Sometimes creating a new tradition is what's needed in order to lift some of the weight of this season.
I'm even gonna say that thinking that you can do it the same way, you're gonna get the same result.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be willing to make changes in order to get a different result. So for me, this was my first Thanksgiving without my dad. And so on Wednesdays he would come and basically disturb me while I was in the kitchen, but it was all in fun. And so a memory came up and my husband shared it with me. But this year I gave myself some grace. I did not cook anything. And when I woke up on Thursday morning and I did not feel well, I went back to bed.
Mm-hmm.
And my family, they were so understanding and gracious. They waited on me because I started a tradition that we do at Thanksgiving where we go around after we pray and we say what we're grateful for.
Mm-hmm.
So they would not start until I got there. I'm like, go ahead, I'm coming, just go ahead. But no, they waited. So I was appreciative of it.
Yeah. And something you don't know how you're gonna feel when that day approaches.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I am to a degree dreading Christmas, just because of the tragedy that we went through last Christmas Eve. And so I'm already thinking of ways, because last Christmas we were pitiful. Like we just sat around mopey and sad all day, just heartbroken. And like we can't change what happened, but I don't want the residue of that trauma to taint every Christmas moving forward. So I'm already thinking of ways we can get out of the house, because I feel like if we sit in the house, we're just going to be sad all day again. So,
Right.
I'm like, what can we do? Like, what kind of activities can we do? Where can we go? What's going to be open on Christmas Day? Because I'm determined not to sit in the house and feel sad all day. I don't want to do that.
I think that's a great idea. That is a great idea.
Is I feel like when you're isolating is the worst thing that you can do when you're going through difficult times.
Oh yes.
But it's the thing we want to do the most.
It is, but what happens when you isolate during those difficult times?
It intensifies those negative emotions.
Mm-hmm. So if you think you're depressed, before you start isolating, add 5 to 10 to it.
Right. And I think a lot of times we isolate because we look at it from the perspective of, oh, I don't want my negative mood, or I don't want to make other people sad, or, to ruin anybody else's day.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we need to flip the perspective and look at it like, okay, I'm down. Let me go be around somebody who's going to make me laugh, who's going to put me in a better mood. Instead of looking at it like you're going to rub off on everybody else, look at it as if, let me get in a space where I can pick up some of their positive energy and some of their joy, and put myself in a better headspace. Because the worst thing
is what happens.
Say that again.
That's generally what happens. Like generally, you don't go and you're down and you're around all these happy people and you just stay down.
Right. They'll usually, reach out to try to cheer you up, and you pick up on that energy. But sometimes, even if they don't intentionally say anything or do anything, just being in a different space is helpful.
Teresa said, I usually isolate because I don't think people understand. So they may not understand because they may not have the same exact loss as you. But I think you have to remember or realize that people have lost loved ones and that they empathize with you and that they are compassionate towards you.
Right. And that's what I was going to say. Just because they may not have had that exact same experience doesn't mean that they can't show compassion for what it is that you have experienced. But again, feeling like nobody will understand is another cognitive distortion that we tell ourselves in those spaces of depression and anxiety, which is untrue, because the likelihood that you can enter a room where nobody can relate to having loss, even if it's not the exact same loss, they most people know what it's like to lose someone they love in one way or another. So maybe not exactly the same, but enough that they can relate and show compassion.
Mhm. So we're not walking around with all of our hurt, all of our trauma exposed. And a lot of times we're so guarded and we don't talk about it. And so nobody knows. But I guarantee you what LaQuinda just said is true. Matter of fact, I experienced it in September. Um, I went on a women's retreat and I knew maybe 4 or 5 of the women there. But the similarities of the things that we had in common, it was unreal.
Mhm.
I think we have to start giving each other grace and the space and the freedom to just really be who we are.
Yeah. Well, we've been conditioned to think that um, everything in everyone else's life is good or perfect or they got it all together. Um, and so that makes us feel like when something is wrong with us or we are struggling with an issue, that we're the only ones going through that. But that's not the case. And I'm not the type to blame social media for everything, because social media is just what we make it. But we take, I know I'm guilty. You might take 20 pictures and post one, before you get one that you feel is good enough to post. We only post the highlights. You know what I mean? We don't post what we're going through. We don't post when we don't have enough money for gas, or, that we're struggling, or our kids are failing a class, or they being disrespectful. Like, we're not about to tell you all that.
Right.
We just gonna post the new, Louis Vuitton purse that we got, or the new car or whatever. We ain't gonna post when we can't pay the note in 6 months. We just gonna post the Mercedes Benz emblem or the Jaguar. Like, we're just gonna post the good parts. So
Right.
when you only see our highlight reels, it makes you feel like when you're struggling with something that you're the only one.
Not true.
Not true.
You and I were talking earlier, and you were talking about weight. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times you said just because a person makes it look easy doesn't mean that it is easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that we are graced to do certain things, and so when you're graced to do something, it makes it look easy to the people who don't do that well or aren't gifted in that area. And so
Mhm.
if you are a hairstylist, right? You can come in and do some braids or whip up a style and make it look effortless. But for somebody who is not creative in that way, you can barely part down the middle of somebody's head straight. Less known, style or cut or color or do any of those things. So when you have a gift to do something, you make it look easy. And so when somebody who does not have that comes along and they can't do it the way that you can do it, they feel like a failure or they feel incompetent or like they're not worthy. Whole time they can whip up a finance report in their sleep and you can't even formulate a spreadsheet. That's me. You know what I mean? So we all have areas that we are gifted in. Sometimes we've discovered them, sometimes we haven't, but because we are looking at what other people do well, it makes us feel incompetent and incomplete, and we close ourselves in because we can't do what they do.
Right.
And I think that can be a source of resistance to healing, because we feel like, no, I can't do what they do, so I'm not going to be able to do that. I can't do that. That's beyond what I'm capable of. And it's based on the fact that we're watching what other people are doing.
I think the most difficult part of healing is the part that's uncomfortable. The part that it is going to be tough. Part that you may feel like on certain days that you can't breathe.
Yeah.
You may feel that sometimes you're losing your mind or you don't know what to do next or you just want to scream. You're going to have so many different emotions and that's normal.
Yeah. It's all part of the process.
Yes.
Because what have you accomplished that didn't involve difficulties, challenges, doubting? You know what I mean? What have you accomplished ever that didn't have all of those facets, all of those levels? Anything you've accomplished, you've been gone through anger, frustration, struggle, doubt, feeling defeated, wanting to quit, crying, cursing. Like you've gone through a whole gamut of all those emotions.
Yep. And I guarantee you, if you look back, if you just take a minute and you think back to what you thought was your most difficult moment and where you are today, you can say, man, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Or you can say that, God gave me the strength and I'm still here. I'm still pushing through.
Yeah. You can say, as bad as it was, I survived it. And that's a grace that we don't always give ourselves. Like, because some situations in life get real bad, real bad. But it didn't take you out. Like, I always have stood firm on this is you win if you don't quit. The only way you lose is if you quit. And a win doesn't always look the way you think it does. Sometimes the win is I gained enough strength to keep going. Sometimes the win is I learned more about who I really am and what I really want, what I need.
I think we're so worried about failure. And so when things get tough, if we don't want to fail at something, we'll just back away.
Yeah.
We'll quit. We'll say, "Oh, I'm no longer interested in that. I'm gonna do something different."
Yeah.
But really, you are. You just don't want to fail.
Yeah.
But failure is I like to look at it as a gift because without failure, you don't grow.
I feel like
Mika Washington says she learned her triggers.
I feel like when you aren't willing to fail, you're never going to accomplish anything. I agree with you that failure is a gift. What it gives us is knowledge and
Mhm.
strength.
Yeah.
It gives us knowledge and strength and wisdom to move forward. Nobody I used to, when I was teaching in Little Rock, um one of my coworkers used to always tell the students, if you can't make a mistake, you can't make anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that was so true. That is so true. If we aren't willing to make a mistake and learn from it, then we're never going to be able to accomplish what it is that we want to get out of life.
Mm-hmm.
Because nobody starts and completes something, start to finish without error. Nothing.
Yeah. That's not even realistic.
It's not realistic in any aspect of any concept, any principle, any area of life. That's why, if you look at it from a medical perspective, that's why the doctors in medical school ask for human people to donate their bodies to science, because they need to practice. They got
Right.
to figure out how to perform these medical procedures on living people by working on human bodies, because they can't just go in there and figure it out and get it right the first time. You know what I mean? Like, they have to practice.
Mm-hmm. And if they practice on us, the living, we, ooh, we in
Yeah,
for
we won't be living anymore.
right.
But if you look at it from an educational perspective, I know that everything is done on computers now. Like, the education system is pretty much becoming obsolete of paper and textbook. But even on computers, you have a way to delete what was written prior to that. Back in the old days, when we had paper and pencils, every pencil had an eraser, because they knew that mistakes were going to be made.
That's
That was
evident.
expectation. No one expected perfection.
Right. How many of you on here expect perfection? And if you do, I want you to think about how heavy that is.
I think we all do to a degree. That's why we are such overachievers, and we're so hard on ourselves, and that's why we got to take 45 pictures before we find one to post. Um, you know what I mean? That's why, as Tamika said, she learned her triggers. Um, I think that's why we are sometimes triggered, is because we have created this sense of we're supposed to be perfect. And so when people point out or situations,
Mm-hmm.
our imperfection, it triggers that insecurity in us, or that anger or frustration or whatever it is.
Yep. And I think it's normal that we all have some form of insecurity
Oh
because,
yeah.
and nobody is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody knows everything. So I'm going to challenge you all for the next 7 days to give yourself grace, um, with whatever area you're struggling in.
Mm-hmm. Tamika said, I expect perfection in certain situations. Tamika, what situations do you not expect perfection in? Can you give an example? I'm learning more and more to not expect perfection.
And Tamika, if you want to join, like if you want to share that openly, we can add you. I really want this to be like a open discussion.
Mhm. Yeah, we'll have to play around with times to see when we get the most engagement, I think.
Mhm. When dealing with certain generations.
Mm.
Okay. Would that be young or old? We're in between.
I think one thing that comes to mind is, you know, when you said between young or old generations, I think about how like the concept of perspective of perfection and like where it's rooted in. And so I was thinking about how like how our elders presented themselves, you know, in publicly. Like they would not come out of the she said younger people don't focus on perfection as much as Gen X. And that's kind of what I was getting into. Like
Mhm.
our elders and us, like when we came out of the house, we wouldn't come out of the house a certain way. And I think it's because of how we were raised. Like your clothes had to be ironed. You couldn't bonnets, house shoes, pajamas. Child, I wish you would come out of the house um looking like that. You know what I mean? It was seen as a disgrace to present yourself publicly and you weren't put together.
Mhm.
Now, some of these kids get offended if you say anything to them about, you know, wearing pajamas. I don't like, you know, pajamas in public, but you know, wearing pajamas in public or coming to school or to the store with a bonnet on or, you know, just clothes, just they don't that level of how you present yourself to the world has declined.
But I would not say that that's perfection. I'm just going to say it's self respect.
But I think it comes from a level of feeling like you have to present perfectly because you had to be put together, right? You had to have on the appropriate clothing, you know.
Yes,
So,
that's true.
you know, and so perfection from that perspective, as in if you were going to church, you weren't going to wear pants, you were going to wear a dress and you were going to wear either pantyhose or the socks with the ruffles and the dress shoes, you know. And I'm not saying that that is the appropriate attire because I'm a come as you are within, you know, be decent, but I don't think you have to dress up for church. I don't think that, but that generation, those generations, you had to present yourself a certain way. And to me, that expectation was, it appears to be like there was a level of perfection that was expected when you stepped out of the house.
Exactly. Tamika said, I think for us, Gen Xers, we're held to a high standard and we were raised to look the part at all times or act a certain way. And then she said, another example would be, I don't always expect perfection to an extent from my subordinates at work because I know they aren't me. So I try to give grace and education and educate. And
That's a
and I agree with all of that. I always, Miss Belinda said, I always thought of it as a symbol of self respect, not perfection. I still adhere to that. And so my question is, why do they come out in pajamas and in bonnets? Like what started that? I'm hearing myself twice. I don't know why.
I don't hear you twice. Um, I think Miss Belinda is right. It is a level of self respect. but what is that level of self-respect rooted in, right? Because some people may feel like they have self-respect when they come out of the house with their hair uncombed, or you know, short shorts with booty cheek meat hanging out of the bottom. Like, they may feel that's okay, that's appropriate. I do agree that they just go for comfort. They're not concerned with how it looks, because they say they don't care what other people think, but I don't buy into that. This generation is too social media dependent to not care what other people think.
Oh yeah.
And so I think that they just follow. And I think that for a large part, the standard was lowered. And so that became acceptable to so many people until now it's just become the norm. And I think also the concept of self-respect has changed.
Yeah. And so I don't want them to feel as though we're judging them, because that's not what this is. But I
No.
think that, I mean, I think it's a topic that should have been discussed in our culture a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because like if you go back and you, like you said, you look at people who were probably, now they would be in their 80s. Um, depending on what type of job they had, men wore suits all the time, and women wore dresses to work. And then things kind of got relaxed, but never would you see them out in public with rollers or
Yeah.
bonnets or
Yeah.
pajamas.
Yeah.
um and
And
so me, I wonder, okay, so is it I just don't care, or is it a self-esteem issue? Like, what is it?
I think they care. I just think it's just become acceptable, and so they feel like it's okay.
Mm.
Um, as Tamika said, they absolutely care what other people think, because they judge their post by how many likes they get on a post. Um, and Miss Teresa said, I think this generation is doing things their own way. They don't have the same values we grew up with, mainly because they don't think we were raised right, if that makes sense. Um,
Oh wow. Okay.
yeah, I think that for a lot of parents of our generation, we kind of, because we were, and the generation before us, I think, held to such a high standard, we went to the far extreme. Like, since I couldn't go anywhere without my pants starched and this, and I had to wear a belt. I ain't gonna force my child to do that. And we didn't create balance.
Okay. Yeah.
I think we went from one extreme to another.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so there was no balance, and parents were working, or they were young, and older siblings had a lot of the responsibility. So I'm trying to feed you. I ain't got time to see if you got on, what you got on before you go to school. You just make sure you go to school. You know
Right.
what I mean? So I think that is part of it.
Mm.
And I think sometimes part of it could be that maybe we just didn't realize how bad it was going to get.
Teresa said, my children constantly challenge things or ask why. We grew up doing as our parents said without asking why. Yeah. Now I think that it is okay for our children to ask questions. I think that's how we improve our relationships with them and how we maintain a flow of open discussion. Because if they
Yeah.
don't feel comfortable coming to you about things, then they're going to go to a friend or someone who may not have wise counsel.
Mhm. Yeah. And we've had this conversation plenty of times. I always encourage my children to ask questions, and to do so respectfully, because it models for them how to communicate their feelings, and also it builds their emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And it also teaches them um, how to build trust, I
Mm-hmm.
think, because if they can come to you and express their feelings and you work with them through how to communicate, it also creates a standard for what relationships should look like, right? So I know that anybody that I'm in relationship with should want to hear how I feel, and I should want to hear how they feel. And if
Mm-hmm.
they aren't willing to do that, then that could be a deal breaker for me.
Right.
And so I don't necessarily, like you said, subscribe to the do as I say because I said so. I think we did a lot of it out of respect. However, there is I think a better way to build respect through communication, because sometimes you don't have to agree with what I tell you to do, but you have to do it because I'm in authority over you and I'm responsible for you. But I respect you even as my child enough to say, this is why I'm making the decision that I'm making. I know you may not agree with it, you may not like it, but you need to respect me enough to do what I said do.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Because sometimes all they need to know is why. Like, it may make sense if you take the time to explain it to them.
Teresa said, I don't think our parents cared about open discussion overall in the Black families we often got because I said so. And I appreciate that my children ask why.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And a lot of times I think they may not have known why.
Right. It just, that was their answer because I said so. They
Yeah.
didn't know.
And that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, when we create our perception of things is simply because someone prior, to us said that that's how they felt, or that's how they saw something, or
Mhm.
that's how they felt something should be. So we take on that perspective of a thing, not really knowing or being able to form an opinion of our own.
Yeah. Okay, so we have reached our hour. If y'all would in the chat, tell us what days are best for you: Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday.
And also what time.
Yep. So we're still polling. I have small children, and I was thinking 8 is better for me, but that doesn't seem like that's working either. So,
I don't have small children.
so LaQuinda's like, I'm free whenever. So I'm thinking we're thinking maybe earlier, like 6. Anybody got a suggestion? Any day, anytime, as long as I don't forget. Miss Belinda, how did you get the notification tonight? Was it after I did at all followers? Any day, but after 7 p.m. Okay. And Miss Belinda, are you watching from Cromwell or Resolutions? Because it looked like tonight we only had one person on Chrome. Well, it's 2 people on there now. Now 3.
Thank you, Tamika.
She said no, it popped up on my timeline. Okay. Thank you. Well, we thank y'all so much for watching the live. Okay. Oh, and Teresa Cooper said it was her first time seeing the alert on Facebook. Yeah, so like in the month of October, we were live like every week. And I think the earlier part of November.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's just been, I think it's the last 2 weeks that we haven't been on. And I miss y'all.
Hey, Keena.
Yeah, hey Keena.
So yeah, we'll get it together. We'll figure out a date and time that works.
Yep. Do y'all have any other questions tonight?
Any comments?
Okay, well, stay tuned. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Stay tuned. We'll be posting about the holiday open house. And what giveaways what giveaways I'll do this month.
Thank you, Miss Teresa.
Yes, thank y'all so
Thank
much.
you, Tamika.
Tell somebody about it, like, comment, share. And we'll see y'all next week. Bye-bye.